Cheaters never prosper unless they have the right codes, and then they prosper a lot. You can prosper too by marking your calendar for Friday, August 2nd from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific. I will be streaming a very particular set of video games in my library. The retro games I love to cheat on. Those special games from my past that I really enjoyed but would never have played without invincibility, infinite time, infinite health, or infinite lives. Sure, you can get good, but I'd rather, have fun. I mean, these are video games we're talking about, right? You can come and watch me stay bad on Friday, August 2nd from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific at youtube.com/ChristianGeekCentral. Well, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about The Boys Season 1 on Amazon Prime? Stick around and find out. Well, tell me what you want, what you really, really want. I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. That's like all I know of that. But I thought it was fitting, and if you watch the entire season of The Boys on Amazon Prime, then you will know why. But let's spare me and all of us any more of that song. Hi, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions, here with my uncut review of The Boys Season 1 on Amazon Prime. The synopsis on IMDb reads, a group of vigilantes set out to take down corrupt superheroes who abuse their superpowers. Those naughty superheroes. I think that's actually a pretty fair synopsis. I wouldn't want to add too much more because of spoilers, but I will add that these vigilantes, it should be said, are normal humans. They're not, costume-wearing people themselves, and they each have strong personal reasons to want to take down the corrupt superheroes. And so the tension of the whole premise is there's these awesome superheroes, quote-unquote, that are actually very corrupt, and it's left up to just a small group of kind of rogue, normal humans to try and take them down and free the world from a really messed up situation that it has found itself in. So in talking about just what this animal generally feels like as far as the story, the script, the pacing, the tone, I first want to say I haven't read the comics by Garth Ennis. I'm just reacting to this based on its own merits. So this isn't me going to be talking at all about how faithful it is or isn't to the source material. I found it to be very character-driven, but also very much about story, too. It's about what's going to happen next in this dangerous world of corrupt metahumans that are basically masquerading as superheroes. What is going to happen next as these regular humans try to take them down, essentially, and protect people from the superheroes. This show is, I think, as dark as it gets. Everyone is flawed, and almost everyone is also obviously corrupt or is becoming corrupted in some way themselves. It's a show that's always asking the question, what is this character willing to do to get what they want? Where will they morally compromise? Or how depraved, if they're already morally compromised, how depraved will they really become? That's kind of the question that's being asked of each individual character, of where are they going to go? How dark are they going to get? In what ways are they going to allow themselves to be corrupted? The only character I think that's meant to give us hope and represent virtue is also a mouthpiece for the broken worldview of the writers. So I think in particular, if you're a Christian watching this, you may spend 8 hours in what feels like a dark and nearly or completely hopeless world. It does have beats of humor, but they're also usually pretty dark. Now, I like dark humor, so, I'm open to that. I like dark stories. I like dark worlds, But at some point, even I felt like, my gosh, does every corrupt superhero also have to have some kind of, sexual issue going on? What is this and why, It makes sense given how oversexed we have become because of our entertainment, that we would show a dark world where people are engaging more and more in kind of dark, depraved forms of sexuality. But I mean, when rape and an Oedipus complex are regular parts of your story, it's going to start wearing on even me, And even the darkness in general, one of the reasons that I tend to enjoy dark fiction when I run into it is because it is usually complemented by some kind of sense of victory of goodness over evil at some point. Or there is one shining example of goodness amidst this horrible, messed up world. And when you're lacking that element, then for me, the darkness, the dreariness, the depravity, it does become just kind of a weight, an oppressive weight after a while on the entertainment experience. And I think that, a lot of people that I've interacted with are going to hit that point much sooner than I am. So, take that into account, that if you, generally hesitate to engage with dark content, this is just not going to be the show for you, I don't think. The superpowered action is not frequent, I would say. I wouldn't call it rare either, but definitely not frequent. But when it does come, it's usually really striking. It's shockingly violent and gory for sure. I would compare the pace overall a bit to Zack Snyder's Watchmen movie. I mean, it obviously has a lot of other things thematically in common with that, but and it's not as spectacular when those superpowered moments happen. But like I said, they are striking and visually striking, but most of it is, I would say, a drama. It's with heist movie elements, I should say, as the normal humans are trying to figure out, okay, what's the plan? How are we going to orchestrate this thing to get what we need to do done? And it's so definitely, if you like the heist kind of story elements, that's a repeating part of this series as well. It's set in a world that asks, it's a drama really about a world that asks, what if superheroes existed? What if they were also celebrities and they were contracted by overpowered giant corporations, and they were also secretly extremely very corrupt? So if you're interested in a premise like that, then this may be for you. The Supes, as they are called by the normal humans, especially the Captain America / Superman hybrid Homelander, feel very dangerous and unpredictable to me, while the humans, they do a good job of making them feel very fragile in this world. And so it did create for me this great tension and interest as I watched these normal humans work to try and take out these unstoppable superhumans. The weakest part of the story for me is the very predictable relationship arc between Huey, kind of the main fish out of water character that represents the audience, and Starlight, who is the kind of new fresh-faced hero that's joining the Seven and just experiencing disillusionment and stuff. There is a relationship arc with them that, I mean, I could literally paraphrase some of their lines before they came out of their mouths. And the worst of it came soon after I had had a big point of disconnection from the season, which I'll get to in a little bit. So that particular part of the script was a real hurdle for me to get past. As far as the performances go, I felt like all the performers were solid, and lots of new faces for me, which I love when it's combined with good performances. Carl Urban, of course, is a recognizable face, one of the most familiar faces to me. He plays Billy Butcher, who's the leader of this rogue group of people trying to take down superheroes that kind of casually is referred to eventually as the Boys. His personal motives are slowly revealed over the course of the season, taking him from merely being a jaded, bitter wisecracker to a character that I did really start to care about, especially toward the very end of the season. The other most recognizable performer was Elizabeth Shue. Many would know her from Back to the Future. She plays the corporate, or Back to the Future, I should say, 2 and 3. She plays the corporate head that is managing all of the corrupt superheroes, and she's concocting lies and managing them and managing their cover-ups and just serving her own success-hungry agenda and stuff. And so she's a major player among the antagonists. So those are the two most recognizable faces. But outside of that, Jack Quaid plays Huey, who's kind of the main eyes through which we see the story. He's just this fish out of water. He represents the audience as he's being brought into this secret world of trying to kill superhumans. He's in way over his head. He did a great job of making me feel that, making me feel the danger and feel the action. Anthony Starr is the only other performer I'll comment on. He plays Homelander, the Superman Captain America type, the most powerful of the superhumans, and he just has the perfect hollow smile and perverse or sinister quiet stares. I mean, he's just really fits that role in like all the most horrible, disturbing ways. I mean, he's really, really a good fit. I really don't have any complaints about any of the performances. I'm not ready to hand out Emmys to anybody, I don't think, but I definitely don't have any complaints either. As far as the stunts and visuals go, the effects look really good for a TV show. I think we're just seeing that more and more, especially in these premium streaming service type TV shows. And possibly in this case, it's because they're infrequent. Maybe they were pushing for quality over quantity, and that's how we got what we get in this show. There's a shot in the pilot that shows one super hero standing still as a speeding car slams into her and wraps around her in a slow motion crash sequence. I mean, it was the kind of quality that I would expect from a movie. Maybe not like cutting edge, top of the heap, special effects in a blockbuster movie, but definitely cinematic quality. Not all effects in the show are that spectacular, but they're generally at around the cutting edge for TV visual effects. Okay, so let's dig into relevance. Are there any moral, philosophical, or spiritual themes going on in this season that might stimulate some worthwhile thought or conversation? Wow. Yeah. There's so much to talk about. There's actually, I could make a whole second video on just one particular episode, and I'll get to that in a little bit, but there's a lot here. Unintentionally, perhaps, the series showcases the reality of human depravity and the fact that we are just a broken and dysfunctional species. And, some entertainment shies away from that. A lot of entertainment shies away from that and is just trying to show humanity pulling themselves up by their bootstraps and being better people and stuff. But this show puts our brokenness freaking front and center. And I do think that there can be some real value in that. I don't think they need to take it as far as they did and keep you in the gutter as long as they do in this show, but I do think there's real value in showing that, this whole idea of superheroes, that's a cool idea in our heads, but if these are still people, it's not going to be one of us that's going to save the world. We need somebody that is better than us, somebody that is outside of our broken mess that can intervene. It's not going to happen because of one of us, and I don't think this series is necessarily making that statement, but I think it certainly illustrates that statement well. Broadly, the central themes I think that are intended are disillusionment with those that we once looked up to, who in many cases may have also had a controlling influence in our lives. And then the other theme would be obsession with popularity or perception and kind of social media's role in that. Now, regarding disillusionment, of course, superheroes are the main element representing the disillusionment here. Starlight, for example, is a new hero that joins the Seven, which is like this world's Justice League, only to discover that the heroes she most admired growing up are now co-workers that she either fears or despises. Huey, who, as I mentioned, is kind of like the stand-in for the audience, struggles in his relationship with his dad, who his dad just wants things to be the way they always were, still sees Huey as a kid, and Huey's like, I'm not a kid anymore, Dad, and he's starting to see his father's shortcomings, so that's definitely another example there. As for popularity and perception and that theme, the Seven are constantly slaves to public opinion polls and their social media accounts. They have corporate spin doctors and PR people around them all the time managing their public image, and they themselves, the heroes, the quote-unquote heroes themselves, are far more focused on popularity and perception than on doing any real good for anybody. It's very, very hollow, I can only speculate about the intended real-world parallels intended by the writers here. I mean, is this about parents? Is this about maybe religious figures? I think there's some of that probably, at least in one episode. Again, in a second, I'll talk about that. Is this about how we view celebrities? I'm not sure. The writing lacked just enough thematic focus for me to feel like the writers are committing to any clear social commentary, which is a bit of a shame. I almost feel like that's kind of a safe way to play it. I would sometimes rather that writers make their social commentary clear so that it can be put on the table and it can be itself criticized or reacted to. And the exception to that would be one episode dealing with a totally different issue than the two that are the main themes of the show, the issue of Christianity. Although it is built up to a bit in episodes before it, episode 4, titled Good for the Soul, is a surprisingly blatant piece of criticism about Christianity, or at least some version of Christianity with varying degrees of connection to reality. I really have a lot of questions about that. Starlight, the fresh-faced superhero that just joined their version of the Justice League called the Seven, was raised a Christian but has begun to question various aspects of her faith. Yet she is put on a Christian celebrity pedestal at a large Christian conference. The tension from that situation results in several scenes where the writers use the characters we like. She is certainly one of them. Billy Butcher is another. To question, or in the case of Billy Butcher, even mock Christian beliefs. Now, I'll be honest, I was irritated by this. It took me 2 full episodes after this one before I stopped just kind of meta-analyzing the show and seeing just only the agenda of the writers all over the place. It took me 2 episodes to get to the point where I was connecting with characters again. You know, it was like having a friend that you care about dragged into the public spotlight and be falsely accused of a bunch of things that he was given no time to publicly respond to in that same setting. It struck me as uneducated criticism at best and willingly slanderous at worst. I don't know the hearts of the writers, and so I can't even speculate as to which was the case or if there's somewhere in between. I mean, I continue to just kind of be mystified at how criticism like this is still perpetuated that fails to incorporate the intelligent responses that Christian thinkers have been providing for years, you know. And on a side note, in my personal experience, I do find that it's usually ignorance of the existence of these responses. It's not that these responses have been considered and just found, you know, empty, and so they're just being ignored. Usually I've found that it's actually ignorance of even the existence of these responses, and that's why I would say that these comments, these forms of criticism provided in this episode of the show are uneducated, you know. Now, I totally welcome criticism of the Christian faith. I myself have asked piercing questions of my own faith throughout my life, but this criticism is just totally uninformed and outdated and doesn't actually help move the conversation forward intellectually. It's just a repeated, emotionally fueled series of complaints. Now, that said, as Christians, I think that we should try to see past the uninformed criticism or jaded bitterness to the wounded people that are expressing it, or who are probably wounded people expressing it. I don't think the right response from us as Christians when things like this happen is to express anger toward any non-believers, or to vent anger just openly to a general audience on social media. Anger may be appropriate, but this isn't this space that we're in right now, social media, YouTube, podcasting, whatever. I don't think that's the space where expressing that anger is going to do any good. I think that we're better off simply sharing our befuddlement and saying, you know, something like, what are they talking about here? I mean, this isn't what I believe. I don't think I've met a Christian who believes or acts like this, so I don't get this. And then, with those who are willing, we can look at the issues presented one at a time to clear up misunderstanding. And there are a lot of those things that that involve misunderstanding and need clarification. I mean, they're delivered at a machine gun rate in this episode, and so they can seem overwhelming when they're piled one on top of the other. But I really do think the key is to address them one at a time, specifically with those who are generally open to seeing whether or not these criticisms are fair. And for those who aren't open to that, I think they've likely made up their mind, and we shouldn't waste our time trying to change it. As Jesus said, there's no point in giving precious pearls, of which we have at a limited amount in this short life that we have and the limited time that we have. There's no point in giving precious, limited amounts of pearls to someone who is completely oblivious to their value. What they have going on will eventually be sorted out between them and God, and we just have to leave it to that. And you can look at Matthew 7:6 and Matthew 10:14 for where I would look for support to that mindset. If you are wondering as a Christian or a non-Christian what intelligent responses are being offered for the criticisms of Christianity that are presented in episode 4 of The Boys Season 1, then I recommend both reasonablefaith.org and rzim.org as starting points. This video will get way too long if I try to go into specifically myself responses to all the things that episode brings up. But I will say that I took a lot of notes, guys, during episode 4 of The Boys. So if you are interested in me providing providing a blow-by-blow response to the issues raised in that episode, then please let me know. If I hear from enough of you, or if this review gets enough clicks, then I will definitely put that on my agenda in the near future. All right, well, I have no idea what your tastes are in TV shows, but if I were a time traveler, I'd go back in time and say, Hater! Whew. Well, you already have Amazon Prime, so it's no extra cost to you but your time. I would say watch it. Ever since reading Watchmen, you've enjoyed stories that add psychological realism and human brokenness into the superhero setting. And this one totally does that. Although, be forewarned, it does that to a fault for your tastes. You'll appreciate it enough for it to be worth watching, but don't binge it. The darkness of the world just gets disgusting after a while in one sitting. You're also going to have a hurdle in episode 4 to really push through. You will care about the characters and story again. And the season ending, wow, it will leave you looking forward to the already greenlit season 2. You can get my spoiler-filled reactions to The Boys Season 1 in my Spoiler Car video series, just one of many perks available for supporting at patreon.com/spiritblade productions. As for the MPAA rating, this doesn't have one because it's a TV show, but most episodes flash a prolonged warning about graphic violence, language, and nudity. A word on the nudity: it's usually male from the rear. There's one instance of full frontal male nudity, which is kind of across the room, so it's not really zoomed in. There are only 2 instances I recall of breasts being shown, once from far away in the background, another time partial from the side, both brief. There's lots of sexual content, though. Sexuality is a really significant part of the story, particularly just like sexual depravity, you know. So it's mostly a thematic thing, but sometimes also it is the act that's being shown, but the private areas are almost always covered. Yeah, it's definitely not what I have heard Game of Thrones and similar shows to have been like in general in terms of their freeness that they feel with putting nudity on screen, but it's still beyond what's necessary for storytelling. The Parent's Guide at imdb.com I found is a good resource, and I recommend that for checking out more specific information about The Boys. All right, those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours in the comments below. Please like, share, subscribe, click that notification bell to stay in touch with this content, and then join us, I hope, soon over at christiangeekcentral.com as we continue to geek out and seek the truth. Cheaters never prosper unless they have the right codes, and then they prosper a lot. You can prosper too by marking your calendar for Friday, August 2nd from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific. I will be streaming a very particular set of video games in my library. The retro games I love to cheat on. Those special games from my past that I really enjoyed but would never have played without invincibility, infinite time, infinite health, or infinite lives. Sure, you can get good, but I'd rather, have fun. I mean, these are video games we're talking about, right? You can come and watch me stay bad on Friday, August 2nd from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Pacific at youtube.com/ChristianGeekCentral.